you for all the blessings that you've shown this community. Help us to make good decisions today for the growth and betterment of the community. Be with our firemen, our policemen, our first responders, and our military as they try to protect our quality of life. And be with us today. Amen.
I will call to order the meeting of the Danville County Planning and Zoning Commission, June 22nd, 2022. Approval of minutes. We have a motion to approve the minutes. Second. And we have a second.
Mr. Chairman, if I might throw in something, I've made one or two small corrections to the way my legal report was set out. I doubt that this will be of grave interest to the Planning Commission, but I just want to note that they're being altered, approved as amended. So a couple of details where I've just changed who the parties were in the legal report. So
Okay, so noted.
thank you.
So we have a motion and a second and for the amended minutes. All in favor? Motion passes. Financial report.
The financial report is in your packet, and again, runs through the month of May. I won't go into any detail. We have the final budget approval later in the agenda, and Commissioner Mannon's going to go through that in more detail on the final budget and look at our kind of year-end numbers, but mostly our next year numbers. But there's not much to report on the May financial report unless you all have any questions, and I'll be glad to answer them.
We have a motion to accept the financial report. And a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Motion passes. Construction sureties.
Yeah, not much to report this month on the construction sureties, but want the commission to note on the letters of credit, the Bull County Industrial Foundation letter of credit in the amount of $523,000 expires on 7/12/2022. We've talked to them about a renewal. The goal was to try to have it on this agenda. The new letter of credit did not get to us in time. I understand we're going to hopefully get the letter of credit somewhere around the 10th or the 11th, but it'll be on next month's agenda for you all to renew the letter of credit, although we'll get it on time, hopefully. If we do not get the letter of credit by the 12th, there will be an item on the next agenda to rescind the plat that this letter of credit is backstopping. But we're been told we'll have this sometime around the 10th of July. And there's nothing else I've got to report on that, on the whole list of bonds.
Okay.
No. There's no action we need.
All right. Subdivision approvals.
Just gonna do those.
Lisa?
The first two that we have are just for final approval, if I can read them together and then get a motion. The last one is for preliminary and final.
Okay.
First one we have is George and Margaret Scott and Paula Antrobus. They submitted a plat creating parcel A, which is 618.4 acres. That's not right. Sorry. Anyway, creating parcel A from the Scott property and combining that parcel A with Antrobus, which is lot 14 on the plat. The location is 106 and 108 Cottage Manor Drive. The property is zoned single family R1A. Steve Carroll is the surveyor, and it's ready for final approval. The second Roger Foster and Lisa Foster. They've submitted a plat to divide a 10.102 acre tract, that is A, from their parent tract. It's all located on Lebanon Road in Perryville, Kentucky. And the plat is also establishing an easement across the parent tract for the benefit of the tract A. The property is zoned agriculture. AGE is the surveyor. No corrections were suggested, and it's ready for final approval.
And so we can have a motion for those two subdivision approvals.
I make a motion to approve those two.
We have a motion. And we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion of subdivision approvals number 1 and 2? Motion passes. Gotcha. That's it. All right, number 3.
Next, we have just a slightly late entry for Vantage, that needs both the preliminary and final today. It's John and Deborah Eland, and Keith and Elizabeth Julius, and Bradley and Elizabeth Betak. They've submitted a plat subdividing a 11.090 acre tract into lots number 1, 2, and 3, all lots fronting on Wells Landing Road, and also creating non-conforming tracts A and B that are to be conveyed with the adjoining lots 10 and 11 that are in the Old Bridge development. The property is zoned ag. Vantage is a surveyor, and all corrections have been made. It's ready for final approval and preliminary, excuse me.
Okay, we have a motion. We have a motion for approval. And a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion? Motion passes. Okay. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
We have public hearings. First public hearing, Newcomb Oil Company, Inc. has filed a site development plan on tract of land containing 3.035 acres located at Summit Drive, Delma, Kentucky. The property is owned highway business. I think we're waiting for our director.
I jumped out of the room for a second. There's Center College is after this next item, and they're not here yet, so I was just giving them a call to ask them where they were. And I think they're going to try to be here in a few minutes. So,
Okay.
are we on the site plan?
We are on the public hearing
All
for
right.
Newcomb Oil.
Well, this one's first anyhow, and I think there's representative obviously here for that. This is a site plan case, and let me get to which project we're on. So again, there's an aerial. This isn't in your packet. I know you guys have to spin around, but this is the site at the corner of the bypass, and it's Summit, although Google shows it as Ingleside. That's not the correct name. It's actually Summit. And then you see Stuart Powell dealership. This is kind of looking into the site from the bypass. I think you guys are familiar with the corner there. And then this is the exhibit of a project on the corner. This is, I guess, official, the first time we see the word 5-star on the drawing. We've known this property's been purchased and been under design for quite a while. And KWM has been working on this as well as AGE for some off-site improvements that relate to this for drainage and the road. So let me just explain a few things that's happening here. This is the site plan, and again, this project is really just this 3-acre portion, but there's a new road that's being proposed to the rear off of Summit. It'll continue towards Davco, and the drainage will be off-site down in the corner. Let me go back to this exhibit right here. So the drainage that this ties in with, it will be off-site down in the corner by Davco and moving to the south. So KWM did the site work for the project. AGE is working on the street and drainage, which we had the full drainage plan. It's in the file. I'm not sure it went in your all's packet, but the drainage was done by AGE. The city's looked at everything as far as drainage. And then again, the construction plans have been reviewed and approved. So that'll be a separate project under a plat bonding scenario will be for this road construction to the north. And again, all the drainage moves across country to a basin, and all that's been looked at by the city and signed off on. So the site plan today is just pretty much this property, the functionality of the store and the gas pumps and landscaping, et cetera. That exhibit's a little cleaner because it doesn't show the contours to kind of show the site and the landscaping on the property. Tech Review looked at this project and did have a concern about one of the access points. The access point mostly to the south. There's 3 access points shown along Summit and 1 to the unnamed street that'll be to the north. And there was some concern about that access point and how it would function in relationship to the frontage road and the access point and the bypass. And just to show you a couple photos, this is the 5-star site over on Denmark, as a comparison. But I think what the Tech Review Committee's concern was more of our real life experience that we have happening over by Kroger's and Starbucks. And it's just more about a frontage road, a short stacking space, the bypass, and a lot of conflict movements from cars going in different directions. Clearly, this site is not going to be near as busy as that site, but I think the Tech Review, and those guys can speak for themselves, there's 3 of them here today. Their concern was kind of how all these things tie together. These access points, the frontage road, the bypass, the fact there's no traffic light, and then future development that could occur back on this property. Everything else Tech Review was okay with as far as the landscaping, layout, drainage, but I think the access point was the one issue that they wanted the developer to come back with maybe an alternative or a suggestion on.
Yes, I can throw some on.
Yeah, and I'll stop right there. Yeah.
If you come down the picture that is 10 toward the bottom, if you turn left, you've got to go across the divided highway and turn left into the traffic pattern. Up there, you've got another traffic intersection not too far away. The thought here pattern is that if you look at it, physically, there's not a lot of distance from that first entrance into the actual station itself. And then you get the potential of having people waiting to turn on that particular intersection. So we were concerned about it backing up, is what we're talking about in that right
again, we had the city engineer come into the tech review meeting and talk with the tech review members. And then he communicated that concern back to KWM, who I then think called you guys, and then hoped we would get some reply back on some alternatives. So again, there's a representative here from Newcomb or Five Star.
Just, Steve, to remind you, the street behind the station is not going all the way down to Dayton for a while.
For a while, correct.
It's uphill, so there's no way to go down around the center from the backside. You really are limited for a period of time with that one entrance area.
Our current bond is, well, we don't have a letter of credit yet, but we do have a plat, construction plans approved. It's just for 350 feet of street to a temporary turnaround till such time the road is extended further to the west. So it will be built with the project. Summit Drive will also be improved by Five Star. That they're going to play a role in that. The property owner of the entire property, Nancy Davis, will be building the street and the drainage, off-site drainage, and the sewer. And so all that's kind of happening together, but that's correct. The road will stop to the north there, just at the 350-foot mark until future development occurs. So again, this gentleman's here. I think we may want him to kind of tell us what he knows about the property or what their plans are and maybe what options that might exist. And you'll need to go
If
to
you'd
the
like to
mic.
come forward, please state your name and address, who you represent, and
Yes, I'm Brad Miles with the Newcomb Wool Company, 951 Withrow Court, Bardstown, Kentucky. And yeah, we talked to Josh for a while about that access point and different options, and making sure that everybody understood that what we were proposing to do, which is we're going to take that intersection and widen it out to where we have a left turn lane, a right turn lane, and then an inbound lane. So we're widening it, I think, about 16 to 18 feet. And we're also going to flatten the slope out so there's not that big hump in it. If you notice it, when you go over it, there's a pretty substantial hump. And we don't want our customers just sitting there waiting to try to turn out of that intersection on the bypass, just to make it smoother in general. As far as the entrance goes, Josh, I don't know if he sent you guys my reply or not. But okay, well, I sent him a reply last week about it, and basically, we want our customers to be able to get in there easily as well. We don't want that intersection not to work. So we spent a lot of time before we, it was probably a year ago now, but before we bought the property to analyze it. And I mean, when you look at that distance, that entrance right there is about 120 feet away from the bypass. And there's several places in Danville. I saw that y'all show that Skywalk Drive, and there's another drive that's close, another frontage road where you just have like 70 feet, less than 70 feet or 80 feet, and we're showing it being 120 feet away, and with widening that intersection out, we're going to be increasing the capacity of it as well. So it's just, from our standpoint, we think it's not going to be an issue. And if it is an issue, cars in general, they won't sit there and wait to make a left if they can just go up to the next entrance and go in. Because we have an entrance just about 150 feet up from that entrance, that they'll be able to cycle around. So that they won't congest that intersection, because they have another option. Our main concern with not having that access is, one of the main things about, getting a customer into the gas station is how many turns they make and the distance from the bypass or from the main road to the gas pumps or the store. And if we're not allowed that access, that, our customers are having to make a 180-degree turn every time they come in. And that's not, subliminally, that's not what a customer wants to do. They want to just pull into the gas pumps, pull into the store, and not have to make a big, roundabout turn every time.
One thing I wanted to point out is at that location, it is 55 miles an hour.
Right.
When you get down around toward the Kroger ends, it is a 45 mile an hour element. Just that speed differential helps achieve better more time, it seems like. Be able to turn left across the track. People are going to do that. Well, I mean, that was one of my questions they had, is that you did mention, which I'm glad you did, it's a much wider area, because the pictures from this graph, you cannot tell
Mm-hmm.
that whole area. And the area right adjacent to the actual bypass area, therefore would have to widen the road. Are you talking about that area or the street itself next to your?
I'm talking about just Summit Drive where it comes down and it ties into the bypass. We're widening that out onto the bypass and improving it. We're adding about a foot of asphalt through a lot of it just to raise it up for sight distance and for, so the slope isn't, a big hump where you.
We couldn't tell during the tech review whether that was there or not.
Okay, right.
It's not recognizing that we're not involved with the history of this.
Right, absolutely, yeah.
What are you doing about traffic coming out of Thoroughbred? Where the road fronts strip out?
The frontage road,
Something?
I mean,
Where are we, because you're never going to be able to turn left there from there to get out.
I mean, since we're widening it out, it's increasing the capacity of that quite a bit. I mean, I think let's see if we're gonna slope it down and just tie it back into there. So we're planning on going about 40 feet onto Ingleside and then paving it all, and to tie it in because we're raising the grade up. So that's really all we can do with Ingleside without getting onto the Ford dealership.
What I'm saying is you got people coming out of your service,
Mm-hmm.
turning right, there's a line of cars there, people coming in, you'll never be able to turn off Thoroughbred. Never.
Well, I mean, the amount of cars and vehicles, though, when y'all look at our other store in Danville, you're getting all those other businesses in there.
What he's alluding to is that once this is in here, it's in there for 30 years or longer.
Right.
So I fully expect that the rest of that area will grow in size. And we'll have to figure out how to accommodate the traffic flow, but if it's going to be just that intersection for all the new businesses that are down toward Gainesville, we're gonna have a really busy area.
Right.
Are you thinking of having a stop sign, I don't know what direction it is, I'll say north because it points up.
Plan north, there you go.
Are you having a stop sign before Thoroughbred Road?
I think, is there a stop sign on Ingleside or on Thoroughbred right now?
Coming up to the bypass?
On Thoroughbred, right?
Yes, both places.
And on Ingleside?
At the intersection of the
Okay,
bypass.
okay, yeah, that's right.
There are stop signs on all three of that area.
Okay.
Now, whether people stop is another story, but that's.
Yeah, there's two stop signs. One on
Two of
Thoroughbred
them,
and one off
right.
I got you.
I don't know how long you're gonna come out. I mean, you can't get out, it's hard to get out now, with people coming in. Now they'll be turning and going straight to your gas station. You're never gonna be able to get out there.
Where the,
Did you receive any response back from your letter to the city engineer?
I've not yet, no.
It was an item that, this is the time to plan for something, and
Mm-hmm.
that is what it was.
And, I mean, just talking with Josh, he was, and he brought the same concern about, the whole development. And, we're just the first in, and I'm sure at some point, we're talking stoplight and traffic, traffic signal, no doubt. But with just one business. Right. And we've submitted it to the state, and they're, they only had one concern, which was that we wanted to remove the guardrail across the front of the property, which they're not gonna let us do, but that was their only concern with the.
conflict points, I mean, I guess that's the concern I see too, is with the frontage road and the access in here, I mean, we can't even predict different movements. There could be people shooting across to get in. There could be the left-hand turns, like Commissioner Griffin's saying, where they're wanting to get out and they need to get into this stacking lane. You know, just one or two cars, it's gonna make them virtually, I mean, they'll be, you know, it's gonna function like a three-way stop scenario, I get that, but I guess, you know, if this could be shifted back or right in, right only, it just eliminates more conflict movements that we know are gonna be a problem. And like I said, all we have to do is, this is your other site, and even that one's technically a right in, right out, right? That's not an entrance.
Right.
So you don't
that's
have these people coming in and, or this way trying to do lefts in, this is just pretty much come out.
Do you mind to flip back to the Skywatch Drive and those other ones?
That one.
You know, we have a lot more distance between our
Yeah.
store and our left turn than what is there. We have double that distance. And that's where the conflict for the onto the bypass is. It would be, you know, the stocking distance between the bypass and our first entrance, which. Right, exactly. Which is why we're doubling it, making it 150 feet instead of, I think that one's 68 or
But see,
70 feet.
but here's the problem. Even if this one was 90 feet or 100, the problem we've got is the left-hand turns are trying to dive in into the stacking, which is still the same model you're showing. And then, of course, you've got this traffic that's sometimes going straight, sometimes turning left, sometimes, you know, if there was another entrance right here, they'd be trying to go in that way. I think that's the challenge on this site, is the frontage road is really the problem, not really your access point, or your, in a perfect world, that is good stacking.
Right.
You know, 180, 150 is probably better. But the problem is this frontage road and what could be coming out of this street, we're not sure where it'll go, if people are gonna try to make this movement, or if you're gonna have two cars stacked right here, and they're gonna be trying to get into this lane, or it's the people coming in that stop right here, because there's a couple cars, and they're trying to turn in. At some point, you've got kind of all these movements happening, and it's really the distance of the frontage road from the bypass that I see as causing the conflict, really not your access, but
It's not his access, the frontage road is what they're.
but how do we make it better is the key. And so, you know, I think their concern and suggestion was maybe it could shift, maybe it could be a right in, or it could just be a right out only.
Right, and in my email to Josh last week, I said as a compromise, we'd be willing to shift that entrance up, I think it was 28 feet, to where it would be in the middle of our gas canopy.
So this would move up, and it'd be more up in here.
If we moved it up, it'd put it in the middle of our gas canopy where most people wouldn't be making a 180-degree turn.
I see.
You know, some people would, but most of them would still be going straight, and it would give you, it would alleviate some concern of that intersection. You know, I guess we were looking at it from a standpoint of getting people off the bypass. And, you know, if you have a stop sign at Ingalls on Thoroughbred and you, that's all really low speed, you know, Thoroughbred and Summit. The main issue is getting people off the bypass, which is what why we submit it to the state and because we're going to improve the road. But you know, people are going to get off the bypass. It's that, and all those other problems are really low speed issues. You know,
Well,
where
the
people's
other
not gonna
thing
get-
I think we know happens today is there are people that pull out of here and think they can turn left on the bypass. And there's times you can make that turn. There's other times it's pretty tough because it's starting to stack more from here and different parts of the day. That's a challenge I see, is at some point there's going to be customers that intend to come out and think they're going to go left. They're going to stack. You know, you're going to have dedicated left and right hand stacking for so many feet, but these folks are going to sit here in queue waiting to go left across, or trying to shoot out to the median while another car is coming in. I would suspect some people are eventually going to go this way to get to the light, because that's going to become a tough left-hand turn movement out of that site. And so you're going to have people that are kind of making this movement to get out a different way, because this will stack up, those left-hand turns will stack up till there's a traffic light. Because even right now, it's tough to get out of there. You just
Right.
sort of,
Well, I mean, in that case, if they're gonna try to turn left out of there, they would be, they'd be stopped just like everybody else was at that point.
but they won't be moving on through. The rights will go, but the lefts might stage longer, which means the folks coming off Thoroughbred are waiting to get into that lane one way or the other. And then you might encourage those other movements. Again, this is really kind of a unique problem that really all relates to that frontage road. If the frontage road was dissected and it stopped at some point, and this was just a true intersection, this would be a whole different scenario, kind of like your other site.
It doesn't make sense to make it right only, you can only turn right up there. You need some way to do that. Once I've seen work in other cities that have traffic, well, there's no traffic.
Mm-hmm.
The good news is, to everyone's point, is right now, Stewart Powell's not a high traffic generator. There's the volume in and out, but it's not the same as a Kroger's or a Starbucks or a Five Star. So the volume's different, but there's a lot of movement down that frontage road for different reasons. People, and then the other challenge, I think, and it's not yours, is exactly what we're seeing right there, and we know at every median cut, the cars that dive in and sit, and then the ones that are gonna come out turning left, there's a good chance they're gonna go so far and stop. And they're gonna be sitting there while a car's trying to come in left the other direction. And they're jockeying.
Because that first red car is way over on this side.
Yeah.
Even with painted lanes.
Yeah.
They don't have painted lanes, but he wants to go out there and he wants to turn left. And there's one on the main road out there that wants to turn in. So it makes it difficult. That's the challenge we have. Widening the up, painting it will help.
Mm-hmm.
If we can avoid from the gas station itself, which would be in the right here, avoid that traffic back up from the side. Because they're gonna turn left here, and you're gonna take the first entrance into the gas station.
Mm-hmm.
Wait for the traffic to clear. And that's where you get back up to the main road out there. And as I said, no light on the road, it is 55 miles an hour. People accelerate from the other intersection toward the Harrisburg direction. There you drag ratios, they don't drive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The question was, and I'm glad you mentioned, moving it back will help. I think that's something.
Right. Would that make y'all feel more comfortable if we moved it back 28, 30 feet, where it's in the middle of our gas canopy, it's further from the intersection?
You make, in my opinion, you make the judgment how far back, but the more you get, the better off it is.
Right.
It's just, when there's more exits from this area or entrances by other streets, the problem will take care of that.
So that's your preference as opposed to a right-in, right-only?
Yes.
Or I'm sorry, not right-in, but right-out only
Right,
option?
absolutely, yes.
Okay.
If that's okay with you
I
guys.
mean,
yeah.
it's up to the commission, but anything I think you guys could do till we get a traffic light's gonna help, I think,
Okay.
you know.
You'll have enough business that they'll want to turn left and go toward Harrisburg. You just block that with the community, I think would be a harsh.
Right.
It's also dangerous left.
And the other thing we talked about, we understand there's gonna be tanker trucks coming in and you're designing the movements for them, but you also are gonna have other diesel trucks in there with the diesel pumps, so it won't be as big a volume, but there are gonna be longer vehicles that are coming through this stacking area and taking up that 100 feet
Mm-hmm.
and causing that same issue as far as everyone trying to stack through that intersection.
Right.
If one truck decides they're gonna, some reason, try to turn left out of there, they're pretty much gonna bottleneck that whole thing, and until that road maybe is connected in different directions into the shopping center.
Okay.
So what's the most you think you can agree to today?
Like I said, 28 feet would be a good compromise for us, and I think you guys too, as far as it was a little frustrating with Josh because when we were looking at buying this property, we sat down with with all these entrances showing the way it was, and there wasn't any concern brought up about it, and which is one of the main reasons we bought the property was because we could get our entrances where we were showing them. But, we are willing to move it back, 28 or 30 feet. I'll say 30 feet to where most of the cars are still not making a 180-degree turn in the parking lot to get to the store or the gas pumps.
So how's that affect your second entrance?
It shouldn't affect it at all. It'll, like I said, it'll put that entrance right in the middle of the gas canopy. So if you just shifted that up, it'll be right in line with the middle of it. As a visual way to look at it, you'll probably be 80 feet from that second entrance. And the only reason we have those other two entrances up there is for, the trucks are going to come in, they're going to go in that third entrance up there because they like to turn left because they can see, and they'll come all the way around, and then they'll come into the diesel canopy, then they'll come straight out there and flow back onto Summit like that. It'll keep the trucks moving more smoothly, I guess. But it shouldn't cause a conflict with the second entrance because it'll only be cars for the most part.
And right now, you're not moving the canopy at all. Where it is.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
I think it's pretty good compromise.
Okay, so you're saying you move, we'll call that entrance number one,
Yes, sir.
roughly 28 to 30 feet to the west,
Yes, sir.
correct?
Yeah, but plan north, if that's west, yes.
Okay.
I'd recommend the city though, Steve, just put a stop sign there.
I mean, you guys can make that,
We can make, because you're still never gonna get out of thoroughfare. If they're as busy as you hope to be. Yeah, you're never gonna get out of thoroughfare, turn left. I would like to recommend that. Steve, maybe or something.
no, I mean, you guys can, if that's a condition you guys want to suggest, and you think that makes sense, kind of a city engineering call on that, since
Right.
that's their
It's
street,
more-
but it could be,
Wish we could blame city engineering, not the planning commission.
well, you could make it a condition with city engineering approval, that you would suggest there be a stop sign located contingent on the city's approval. And if they, for some reason, think there's a reason why it shouldn't happen, and
Okay, any other discussion? Any other questions for the applicant?
Thanks for y'all's time.
Thank you.
We're gonna come out, public hearing on each one, and go to another one, just continue on the public hearing.
Yeah, I think we need to address these one at a time.
That's what I think, too. But you gotta come out of public hearing to take any action.
On this issue,
I think so.
I mean, we'll end, this is public hearing for this issue.
Right.
I think it'll be, each
Each one
issue will be
a
its own,
public hearing, yeah.
so we'll,
So we have to end the public hearing on this issue to do anything.
do we need to end the public hearing to address this issue, or do we just address it and then keep going with our other hearings?
I think that you need to invite public comment, which doesn't appear there'll be any, and then you can have a motion folding in those two recommendations that we had, conditions, and vote to approve conditionally that way.
Okay.
on this
So-
item and then move on to the next.
So this time we'll have anybody who wants to speak in favor, or anyone who wants to speak in opposition. At that time, seeing none, we can.
Have a motion to approve with,
Close the hearing, have a motion.
right.
So we are awaiting a motion.
I move we close the public hearing and consider approval or deny.
Are you going to make a motion, or? I don't think we
I
need
don't
to
think-
close the public hearing. We just need a motion on this, this particular
Then I
item.
make a motion we approve based on Newcomb Oil's willingness to move it 28 feet to the west.
And some kind of include consideration of stop sign
Okay.
with the approval of the city commission.
Okay.
Requirement for the stop sign with the approval of the city engineer.
Do you want us to put a stop sign where?
That was it.
Thank you. I'm gonna say north. Not north, what direction is it?
Isn't there one there? Other,
There's one at the bypass now.
Okay.
Not one back on that side.
Okay.
Other side.
These are, that's at the corner of their property.
you got all that?
I don't think so. So stop sign on eastbound Summit.
Yes, and facing west, yes.
Okay.
That's eastbound Summit.
Eastbound Summit, west of Thoroughbred.
Okay. And I think the other condition was clear, but just to be sure, when we're talking about moving an entrance, we're talking about flipping it, the way it looks on your site plan, the easternmost entrance.
Right here,
Right.
moving it 28 feet west.
Thank you, Commissioner Boyd.
Well, I named it one because it was the first one. So-
Right. I think everyone's clear.
I think you have a motion to give.
Second.
Yeah, I think we finished our motion.
Okay, so we have a motion. Is everybody clear as mud? All right, we need a second.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a second. Any further discussion on the motion? No further discussion. All in favor of the motion? Unanimous. Motion passes. Thank you. Appreciate you working with us. Okay. Our next hearing is Center College has filed a site development plan on tract land containing 13.5 acres located at 600 West Walnut Street, Danville, Kentucky. The property is on institutional campus development.
Yep.
And no one is here.
We got a
Oh,
representative
okay.
from Center here.
Someone is here?
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
So I'll walk you all through this pretty quick. This one is probably a little more complicated, but there's probably less discussion. Tech Review looked at this. There were no comments we needed to address. This is a project on Center's campus, and there were several sheets in a submitted document from Carmen and HSA. You guys only got a handful of the sheets, but basically this is the existing site now. Again, the football stadium and the old baseball. This is what's being built. As you all know, the football stadium's being renovated. The new natatorium is going to be constructed. This area has already started construction with a new clock tower and kind of a plaza area. And again, these exhibits then show each side of the project. The natatorium side will be part of the site development plan. The football field and the stadium components. And again, these look like the same things, but one's grading, landscape, and the site. So this is grading, and then this is landscape on both. And that's kind of where we're at. Not much more to kind of go over. Tech Review looked at this, and everything met all our requirements. It is institutional campus development, which is a unique district for Center College or big campuses or religious institutions, kind of bigger development type zoning district, meets all the setbacks and all our requirements, and is ready to go as far as Tech Review. And again, there's a representative from Center here, but no one from Carmen or I believe HSA. Some of the technical folks aren't here if you guys get down in some drainage or grading. But the city's looked at all this from grading, water, all of that, and everything's been approved. There's not much more I have unless you guys have any questions.
Steve and I talked about this earlier, and we
No issue right
we've
up
got
here.
more discussion, I'm sure, of the site plan, but there is an issue with the street over here to, in the, I guess, the northwest corner.
Right up there.
It's called Colonial Way,
Yes.
and, Google Maps has got it Colonial Way, the,
Fiscal.
city,
It's
has it
Colonel.
Colonel Way,
Right.
and I'm assuming it's Colonel Way.
It's Colonel Way.
Yeah, so I guess we just need to, we already have another Colonial Way already, a
So
city street.
you'd like someone to explore going to Google and correcting that?
No, no, just the
We just
dri-
need to
just
correct
the-
it on this.
Oh,
Just on the exhibit.
We can get that done.
That's not.
Yeah, they just need to fix the exhibit.
We can do that.
Yeah.
We assumed that's what it was, so we,
Right there.
Yeah, I've heard it. I've been in town for about 8 months. I've heard it both ways.
yeah. Okay.
And if you've gone by there, there's already dirt work happening, some pre-grading. The baseball field, as you all know, was developed first, so they could move that. Football's kind of under construction, and the goal is to get started on this part of the project pretty quickly here and finish out the whole development. It's a little tough to see.
Discussion or any?
The landscape plan is actually pretty impressive, and this doesn't really do it much justice, but it's
I make a motion with approve.
Commissioner Boyd has made a motion for approval of the site plan. And Commissioner Davenport has seconded. Any further discussion?
Just to make mention of,
Excuse me, all
To-
in favor?
to make mention of Colonial Way being changed to Colonel.
Okay,
Yes, with a condition that Center change the Colonial Way to Colonel Way on the site plan, yeah.
okay. So the motion's made and the second. All in favor? Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming.
All right, you have a great day.
Okay. Our third public hearing is W.A. Kaufman Jr. and Patricia Kaufman have filed an application to rezone property on a tract of land containing 12.4 acres located at US 127 Junction City, Kentucky. Rest of the zone change is from agriculture to general business.
All right, so this was the case we had set for last month, but we had to postpone due to a lack of quorum, so it was filed on May 4th, 2022. You heard the applicant's name. The location is 0 US Highway 127. The property is actually bigger. There's the PVA shot there on the map that shows the property, but the portion of this property is in Lincoln County. So we're only zoning the portion in Bull County, which is right there. So we're just zoning the part we have jurisdiction under, which is 12.4 acres. And again, the current property is agriculture. It's vacant currently, has access points already defined from the state. The future land use on the property is commercial, and I'll get into that in just a second. Page 2 of your staff report, we get into the general development plan right off the bat. As you know, the zoning ordinance requires a submission of a general development plan or conditions, and the applicant did submit 7 conditions that relate to building area, freestanding signage, prohibited uses, parking areas, access points, underground utilities, sewer, and the subdivision regs. And I went through those pretty quick, and I'll go back and read in more detail, but I do want to point out, we zoned this property across the street. In fact, the zoning map's not even current here, but we zoned this property right across the street, same thing, from agriculture to general business, and these conditions match those conditions that are on the west side of the 127. So the applicant took the conditions that Willie Baker and Kaufman did on that side and mirrored them for the other side as far as sign heights and prohibited uses, et cetera.
I had a question. You got highway business kind of, in this one, kind of up to the right there,
Mhm.
which is on the same side of the street. Most of that's highway business. Does it have any limitation on the height of the buildings that are in that highway business?
Highway business and general business.
Number one here is 6 stories tall. It's possible.
Yeah, highway business can actually go up to 100 feet, and they did 6 stories. And that's what we did on both sides. It's unlikely there'll be 6-story buildings, but let's just say a hotel was a use someday.
It opens up a lot of.
Yeah, but highway business is a 100-foot height requirement. General business has the same standard. The general business district was more desirable by the applicant and then across the road because it opens up the opportunity to do multifamily or commercial. Highway business is just straight retail. That's all you can do in highway business.
Thank you for explaining that. It's one of the observations here. We have highway business kind of north in there where the town is at and bring down south a little bit.
Yeah, so if this zone change is successful, all that southern portion from Noblick to the county line would be general business, which again would allow a retail opportunity or possibly apartments, townhomes. If they came in, they'd more likely be 3 stories or something of that nature. And most retail is going to be not that tall unless you got to a hotel or something of that style. Most of the strip style retail, would probably just be under 40 feet or under 30 feet even. So just opens up the flexibility as the property is marketed moving forward for sale.
And then my other question had to do, which is number 5, comment for development conditions, 2 access points in that total
Yeah.
property.
Yeah.
That's a pretty large area for just 2 access.
Well, that's what we did across the street, and the state's already got a defined access point here, and as you know, there's the road kind of changes a little bit. There's a bank on this side. The goal here would be that we'd limit it to just 2, and they'd have to work that out with the state.
And you're answering what I was.
This one's already,
Driven by it, there's access there.
it's already built.
That being one of the 2 then?
There'd be 2 allowed on this road and 1 on this street.
Well, the way it's written here is 2 access points along 127, so.
In
that was
one.
my question, whether it was going to be that access point or not.
Well, they could shift. I mean, that's one the state's already built. They're only get 2, period. So that obviously probably is going to be one, and it lines up with the access point that's kind of across the street already. But they'd have to go to the state. If something came in, their desire was to, put 2 here or 1 here, then 1 would have to go away. But the limit is 2 on that frontage, and our hope would be they'd match up with what's across the street.
You said before, one of the other comments, the bottom right kind of trapezoid region is in Lincoln County.
Yeah, you can see it. You can almost see this.
About the access points in that area?
Well, everything that's in Lincoln is on the back end with no road frontage. So what we're zoning is just this right here. You can actually see the shaded area, so. And they've already got an access point. There's actually already 1 here, but down the road, who knows where there may be a desire for that. But they're basically committed to no more than 3 between the 2 street frontages. And that's what we did across the street too.
And that whole large property we're talking about is just item number 2, which is the 1 freestanding sign
No, it says per platted lot. So today it's one lot. If down the road that was cut into 6 or 7 lots, they get one sign per lot.
That doesn't preclude them from doing that downstream.
Yeah.
Whoever.
Yeah, so if it was one big development, a Walmart, let's say, probably unlikely, they'd have one sign. But if it turned out to be several, a gas station, a restaurant, a hotel, they would each have their own sign. So again, I won't go into the conditions in any more detail unless you all want to. They're pretty, somewhat generic to allow them to market the property into the future. Big thing to turn in staff before we get into the comprehensive plan and the future land use map. And some reason my thing's not working any longer. Let's see here why this isn't working. Go right here. So there's the future land use map for that portion of Boyle County and in the city of Junction, and it's commercial. As you know, the Junction City future land use map was revised prior to them coming back into planning and zoning through a map committee that involved the city and planning staff and the community. We had a public hearings, and all this was debated, and that's fairly new future land use designation. And as you can see, that pinkish color is commercial, and everything along 127 all the way to the county line is designated as commercial. So the zone change proposal does comply with the future land use map, as well as several comprehensive plan policies outlined, comprehensive plan policies and objectives on pages 5 and 6. Not much else I need to comment on other than the conditions do address the development review provisions outlined on page 7, except for a traffic study. And the traffic study, in this case, we did talk with the state and with AGE. Traffic study was not required because those access points have already been predefined with the state. They put those in when the road was developed, and I think that's where the state intends for those access points to be. Future ones may have to be studied, and with a site development plan, we could have a traffic study request if the state requires that. It's kind of the state's call on that section, and then this street right here is actually a City of Junction City street, and they have no engineering staff, so there was no discussion from anyone that we need to do a traffic study at this point in time. That's all I have, unless you all have any questions. The findings are on page 9 of the staff report, and the cookie cutter motions up or down that our attorney, Mr. Smith, can help us with are on page 10.
Commissioner Griffin, looking at compliance with the goals and objectives in your staff report, page 5, I thought it was particularly compliant with the economic development objective about encouraging growth by providing adequate areas zoned for commercial development, and also the land use objective of making sure that new developments conform to the existing context, and that's in the way that it mirrors its applicant conditions with those across 127.
I guess before, we might have got a little premature with the motions. We didn't have any of our hearing as far as anyone who wants to speak in favor of this zone change, or anyone who wants to speak in opposition of this zone change. Not seeing any, we can close the hearing and do a motion. Okay, so we have a motion. Do we need to read it again, or we're good? We have a motion. All right, we have a second for the motion. Any further discussion on the motion? before us. All in favor, please signify. Motion passes.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. All right, new business, budget committee report, fiscal year 23 final budget. Commissioner Manning.
Yeah, I'm gonna save my voice for this, we'll see if we make it. I'm sure Steve can step in. So, I'll give you out your budget sheet, what we're gonna talk is just the final two columns on the right. The second to the last column is a preliminary budget that we approved several months ago. And so what we're here to do today is to just talk about the final budget and any changes between that preliminary budget and the final budget. And so I'm just gonna talk to a couple of lines, because not much changed. If you look at line 1, you'll see our beginning balance is now expected to be quite a bit higher than when we did our preliminary budget. So right now, we're expecting that when we finish this year, we'll have almost $81,000 in the checkbook, as opposed to only about $67,000, which is what we thought when we did the preliminary budget, because we had some higher revenue than what we expected. So that change is on line 1. And that is really the only change to the revenue and revenue plus beginning balance. If you look at line 19, we're forecasting the same revenue in the final budget that we did in our preliminary budget. Then, of course, line 20 gets the increase by the amount of the beginning balance increase, which is about, $14,000. So that's revenue. When you look at expenditures, there's really been a couple changes there. Lines 21, 23, and 24 have to do with wages and benefits associated with those wages. And when we did the final budget, we had found that we had done arithmetic error in the preliminary budget. And so lines 21, 23, and 24 are actually a little smaller than what we thought in the preliminary budget. But then on line 25, which is the health and dental insurance, the personnel committee has recommended that we go to a better health insurance plan. And that's gonna cost about $4,000 more a year. And that's why line 25 is about $4,000 more than what it was in the preliminary budget. But if you put those two changes together, the fact that we had overstated in the preliminary budget, wages and benefits, and in the final budget, we're gonna be increasing the amount of healthcare we have. You go to line 32, which is the total personnel cost, you'll see it's only up about $1,000. So in the final budget, we got personnel costs of about $1,000 more than the preliminary budget. And the only other, then if you flip the page, the only other change between preliminary and final was on line 61. And Steve just called up the continuing education amount a little bit, and it's really just to make the budget round out, quite frankly. And so there's a small increase in line 65, which is the total expenditures. 64. About a little over $1,000 increase in total expenditures. Excuse me. From the preliminary budget.
You're almost there.
Almost there. So if you go to line 65, net income, it's gonna be up about $13,000 more in the final budget than the preliminary budget. Because we started out with a higher checkbook amount. And then we had slightly higher expenditures. And then the only other thing under the final budget is line 70. And that's where we put the increase in the net income. We left the operating reserves at the same, $19,000.
job. Thank you very much. Appreciate your work you've done on that.
We need a motion to accept.
We have a motion to accept the budget. And have a second. And any further discussion on the budget? No further discussion. All in favor of the budget proposal? Motion passes. Thank you very much, Commissioner Manning, for a fine job. Okay, at this point in time, we'd like to go into a closed session. Do we have a motion to go into a closed session?
For the purpose of discussing personnel matters.
For personnel matter discussion, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, we need a motion. Okay, we have a motion. We have a second. All in favor? Motion passes. Okay, we'll take a break if anybody wants to. Okay. Need a motion.
I make a motion to come out of closed session.
We have a motion to come out of closed session. And we have a second. All in favor? All in favor of the motion? Motion passes. Yep, he went out the front door there. He's out front.
Mr. Chairman, during this down moment, I'll just point out, the statutes lay out that for plats, they shall be approved or disapproved within 90 days. Doesn't say 90 days of anything in particular, which is inconsistent with the next thing I'm going to tell you, that zone map amendments, we have to take action to approve or disapprove within 60 days. If we fail to take action within 60 days, it's forwarded to the legislative body without recommendation. Just- Okay, and yes, with zone map amendments, it's 60 days from receipt of an administratively complete application. It says that. With plats, it doesn't specify, just within 90 days. So that, opens up ground for lawyers to muck around and say, right, exactly.
Okay, so we've come out of closed session. Do we need a vote on the Personnel Committee recommendations? We have Personnel Committee recommendations. I need a motion to accept them with the exception of bullet point number 7.
Make a motion to accept the Personnel Committee recommendations with the exception of bullet point number 7.
Okay, thank you. And we have a second. So the Personnel Committee recommendation of June 10th, 2022. Have a motion to accept with the striking of bullet point 7. All in favor? Motion passes. All right, so is Kendall,
I told him that you struck that bullet, he said he didn't have anything to speak to you on that.
okay. Well, that's, any other new business? Oh, we've got the Bluegrass Ad Agreement.
That's in your packet, the last item. This is our typical GIS mapping agreement with Bluegrass Ad. Normally starts July 1, and it's in there if you guys want to ratify, so it keeps our map moving forward. And in the budget, I think we had, $2,500. It used to be as much as $5,000, it's $2,500. This past year, I don't think we spent $1,000. So they bill us incrementally based on amendments to the map, the GIS map. You guys have to execute that contract every year if you want to keep the relationship going with Bluegrass Ad.
If we have a need to raise that number, is that?
Well, we rolled that number as a not to exceed into this agreement based on the budget, but if down the road, the budget, we saw we needed more mapping funding, Budget Committee would need to address that further and then we would amend this contract. We haven't exceeded that in 2 or 3 years. It is.
Not mutual agreement between us.
We need a motion.
I'd like to make a motion to accept this.
All right, we have a motion to accept the Bluegrass Ad Agreement. And a second. All in favor? Motion passes. Any other new business, any announcements?
Well, I'll just mention there's another solar forum tomorrow night at Centerworks.
Yes, tomorrow evening,
Tomorrow evening,
Okay.
7 o'clock.
I think it's 7 o'clock. I don't know if any of y'all participated in the first one or on the ball, whatever. But there was one with, I think, 50 or 60 attendees. And I got an email yesterday or the day before that had 152 names on the
continuing education opportunity.
They've got different speakers. I think someone from the American Farmland Trust is attending. It is a speaker, and a local attorney, Mark Morgan, is speaking.
Do you have to sign up at a time to attend?
No, it's just a public discussion on the issue of large-scale solar.
And in the article I saw, kind of infers, talking about things you can plant around it. That we were having a conversation about.
Of course, what's tricky for you guys, what Henry said, could be training hours, could be educational, but as the planning commission and the planning commissioners, you don't know that this could be coming back to us for a new hearing, so you guys attending just to hear some information, again, hear what's being said, but you might not want to just toss some opinions per se, because eventually you guys may be back here on another public hearing at some point.
The fiscal and the court talked about, they have a July 15th timing moratorium.
That's when their moratorium expires.
But it doesn't mean they're accepting that.
They have yet to take any action on your recommendation at this point. So it's just there, if anybody's interested in going.
Okay. Do I have a motion for adjournment? Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second. Meeting adjourned. Thank you all for your time.